Welcome to One-on-One. I'm Steve Adubato. Trenton was once a booming city, but in recent years, New Jersey's capital city has struggled, to say the least. Here to discuss efforts to bring Trenton back are George Soa, who is the CEO of an organization called Greater Trenton. You'll find more about that in just a second. Bernie Flynn, President and CEO of New Jersey Manufacturers Insurance Group and the co-chair of Greater Trenton. Skip Cimino, partner in Kaufman Zeta Group and co-chair of Greater Trenton, also a former member of the state legislature, and also Eric Jackson, the Honorable Eric Jackson, the mayor of the great city of Trenton. It is an honor to have all of you with us to talk about Trenton. And Mr. Mayor, the capital city, that is a big deal and a big responsibility, is it not?
Yes, it is. It's been proven so the capital city goes, so that a balance of our region and the state goes. So we're working very hard to make sure that we're a shining light from where we've come from to be a good light for the state.
Yeah, we'll be talking about some of the challenges that Trenton faces, but in many ways this program is about the opportunities that Trenton faces. So Bernie, let's do this. You're a prominent board member of public broadcasting, a supporter of public broadcasting, but you pick your spots in terms of what you choose to be involved in with your limited time. You chose to be involved in this initiative. Talk about your involvement in this, because we're also, as we talk about this, going to be talking about a very prominent friend, the late Karen Franzini, who really brought a lot of people together, and this was her brainchild. Talk about this.
Well, Karen Franzini and Skip Cimino were the two individuals who came to me to talk about this opportunity to help with an organization that could assist with the revitalization of Trenton. Now, our company, NJM Insurance Group, we're 103 years old. We were born and raised in the city of Trenton. And we have deep roots there. Many employees of ours live in the city. So we've maintained those ties. And when I heard from Karen and Skip about the opportunity that was presented, it was a pretty easy sell for them. And it was helpful that Karen Franzini at the time was on our board of directors at NJM, and our board made a commitment to the city, and it's represented now by this organization.
We're going to be talking a little bit more about Karen in just a minute, but Skip, describe what this organization is, Greater Trenton. What is it? What is it dedicated to?
Well, it's dedicated to the revitalization, essentially, of the downtown core. And what we were looking for was, quite frankly, some stability in the city of Trenton's government. And as things were unfolding, we saw that coming with a new mayor in Mayor Eric Jackson. We felt that within the framework of the downtown core, we could find a place where Trentonians, as well as others within the region, could live, work, and play. As we went out and we assessed along the Route 1 corridor, many of the companies out there told us that there was a need for recruitment purposes of young people, that they were looking for places, particularly the millennials were looking for places where they could be able to reside and be a part of a community and what have you. And yet, at the same time, Steve, we thought that this was not just a governmental initiative, that we needed the involvement of the private sector. And so Karen and I thought that we needed a significant leader, aside from government, to lead that charge, and that's how we went to Bernie first to convince him to be the chair of the organization. Right. And then we thought that we needed to provide private sector involvement. And with all of us collaboratively, we came up with 11 companies and foundations that stepped forward. And then we managed to get a very good CEO in George Soa to lead the group.
George, let's do this. If you were to specifically describe, I'm curious about this because we've done programs on efforts to revitalize Jersey City and Newark. And we actually, together with our partners at NJTV, the great public television station in the state, the In Your Neighborhood initiative that they did in Camden, our production company, the Caucus Educational Corporation, did a special down there as well. So we tried to learn about what was happening in Camden. Would you say there's a significant difference in any way, or what are the similarities between the effort to revitalize Trenton versus those other communities?
Well, it's funny, Steve. I've been involved in New Brunswick and in Camden most recently, and when you compare and contrast the cities, Trenton, wonderful community. The bones, if you will, are fantastic. And
what's that? Whoa, the bones.
Right. So when you look structurally at the city in terms of what it has, as far as the transit orientation, the active environment that's there already from a recreational perspective, but also from the transportation, the accessibility, from the residents that are there, the deep commitment of Trentonians. I happen to be born in Trenton, much like New Jersey manufacturers, and so it was a great commitment to come back to the city where I was born and try to make a difference there. And so when I look at the infrastructure that's in place already, we have an airport, we've got a wonderful river there, and you know, so all the pieces are in place for a very transformational piece of the city to come back.
And the state capitol being there matters as well. Bernie, let's go back for a second. Karen Franzini, who was an incredible leader in the state, a visionary in the state, used to formerly headed up the Economic Development Authority for many years, did extraordinary things. We're going to show a couple pictures of Karen. I'd like you to talk about her vision for this city, the role she really played, not just from a practical point of view, but from an inspirational point of view.
Well, Karen was in the beginning the heart and soul, and provided, you know, the momentum.
What did she see?
Well, it's interesting. She retires from the Economic Development Authority, and you think she's going to take it easy for a little while. She starts a consulting business and then identifies 5 or 6 other things she wants to do. Trenton's on the top of that list.
How do you think that was?
Well, I think she had a deep and abiding love for 2 cities, more so than others. She grew up in Atlantic City, right, and then she lived and worked in Trenton. And she wanted to make sure that she gave it her best shot to help turn the city around. And she saw the opportunity that was there. And she had her fingerprints all over the revitalizations that have occurred in the other cities in the state of New Jersey.
That's right.
And she had a national reputation in economic development. So her involvement with Skip's help, those 2 together, gave this effort instant credibility. And beyond that, beyond the legendary leadership that you mentioned, was her manner. I commented in the past that, you know, we're all friends of Karen's, right? But at times it was exhausting to be her friend. It was exhausting. And she wasn't telling you what to do. She was cajoling, she was asking.
Hard to say no to?
Well, when she's working harder than you are, you can't say no. She's just asking for help. And that's what we represent today. So much of what we're doing now is in her memory. She passed in January, breast cancer. It was her 2nd bout with breast cancer. So it's devastating for us, but it has provided us with additional momentum because everybody understands that they've all got to step up a little bit more. And we all have Karen's voice in our head telling us what we ought to be doing relative to the city and other things that she was involved with.
Well, Mr. Mayor, as Bernie describes Karen's vision, she also knew these extraordinary challenges that Trenton faced and continues to face. And you'll be sitting down with us in an in-depth one-on-one interview. We'll go into those issues and challenges as well as the opportunities later. But she knew those. And what do you say to those? Because you want to attracting investment, right?
Yes.
That's part of what Greater Trenton is
Yes.
about. What is it that you tell people when you say, this is where you want to be? How do you do that?
Well, I'll start with what I believe Karen's heart was, that Trenton, she saw the best of what Trenton could become, and she was willing to put her all in. One of the things that I take as a great strength and example from Karen, tremendous convener of bringing people together to see the vision, to see the pathway forward. And as Bernie said, she didn't necessarily pull you to that work. You felt compelled to come to that work because Trenton has just great promise. And as it's been said by George, geographical location, we have now great leadership in place. We have great organizations collaborating and working with us and leading the way, such as Greater Trenton. So we're poised to do some great things with some folks who want to come in and do good business in the capital city.
But some of the challenges, let's break down some of the challenges. Education, how about perception? Because in every community we've been in, Newark, where I was born and raised, Jersey City, Camden, New Brunswick, right, other places, perception, right,
Yes.
fear, crime, whatever it is, that's real.
Yes, it is.
Right?
Yes,
How do you deal, how have you dealt with that?
Well, a number of ways, Steve. So in terms of introducing, or in some cases reintroducing the city to a number of people. So in the past, I've been the president of New Jersey NAIOP, it's a commercial real estate association. And so in conjunction with that, I got to know many, many of the business leaders through the development of the brokerage community and frankly, the user community. And so I've conducted over 50 tours of the city to make sure people understand the assets and the opportunities and frankly, the challenges that exist in the city.
I mean, go past the perception and have them see it for themselves?
Oh, sure, because in many cases, people have come to the city. One case, an individual has been coming to the city for over 20 years, happens to be a legislator, and he says, I go to the state capitol and back to my home, and never realized all the other assets that are in place in the city. And when you take people on these tours, it becomes one of those, oh wow moments, and they really start to understand how all those dots start to connect and make it such a fabulous place to be.
Assets, let's be really specific. You go back to the bones issue as George described. Skip, the state government itself, is it an asset to the city? Or dare I call it, potentially, you know where I'm going? Or is it on some level a liability, or is it both?
Well, I think that the state government can be an asset to the city insofar as the state now recognizes that there is a partner in the city government.
In Greater
In the city
Trenton.
government, and there's a partner in Greater Trenton.
So in the government with the mayor there, let's be clear here, folks, you can Google it. Before the mayor was there, let's just say it doesn't take much to figure out that the previous administration had some real problems, to say the
We
least.
needed a high-integrity leader.
Let's just say it was not
leader.
possible under the previous administration.
That is
Go ahead,
correct.
Skip.
So there's a high integrity leader in place now. But in addition to that, there is also through Greater Trenton, there's a real commitment from the private sector. And when I say the private sector, the board of Greater Trenton is comprised of blue ribbon companies and organizations. And so Bernie has certainly led the charge in terms of New Jersey manufacturers, but companies like Bristol-Myers Squibb, Princeton University, the Princeton Area Community Foundation, Janssen, TD Bank, Investors Bank.
What's in it for them?
Nothing other than ensuring that the redevelopment and the renaissance of the capital city is effectuated. And so these private sector companies have stepped forward, and the board itself is comprised of leaders. So the leaders themselves are sitting on the board, and they're coming to the board meeting and helping us develop what we see as the strategic plan, which will tie with Trenton's strategic plan as to move forward. And what's fascinating to me is the buzz that is being created about the movement forward. So when you
What's
ask
the buzz about? Let's be specific. What's the buzz about?
The buzz is about that there is a new day for the city of Trenton, and that there is a view that the city is coming alive, and that there is real opportunity, and that we can build on the assets, such as the strength of the arts community.
The arts community in Trenton.
Yeah.
It's
very
real.
strong. Yes. It's real.
It's happening.
That's correct.
Let's just say this. There's not a big corporate community in, like Bernie's physically, you started there.
We started
You have
there,
a lot of
but-
employees in the area.
We're right on the outskirts
But see,
now.
Newark, again, has a big corporate, operation, business community.
Yeah.
New Brunswick has business operation here. Trenton does not have that, Mr. Mayor, right now?
We do not. We have a core of smaller businesses that are the engine that turns our city, with a large number of corporate partners along our external doorways that are now engaged to help us with our redevelopment and our renaissance in our city.
Okay. Bernie, what are the other assets? And I also going to have you introduce, there's another leader from one of the corporations, Wells Fargo, Brenda Ross-Doolin, you're going to talk about in a second. We're going to actually show a picture of her. But real quick, help us on this. What are the other assets?
Listen, every city has something unique about it, but I agree
And
with George.
challenges.
And challenges. And you know, we're the state capital,
Yeah.
you know, and that's part of our uniqueness in New Jersey. But my favorite topic in this regard is our history. We won the Revolutionary War on the streets of Trenton. That was the crossroads of the Revolution.
American Revolution.
The American Revolution, the basis for the founding of this country, was that battle was fought in our streets. Now, from a historical tourism standpoint and an educational standpoint, that's invaluable. No other city in America can say that. I mean, for instance, Steve, there wasn't just one battle at Trenton. There were two battles at Trenton. There are two historic locations as to where those battles were fought. We're building on that right now, but you can imagine that when we get to the point where there's greater visibility, on the wonderful capital city that we have, and we play up,
Is that a marketing
aspect.
thing, too?
Well, I think it is, and it has been used that way, and we have had some historical tourism, but when you consider that history, it's something that we can build upon along with all the other
Greater Trenton can be a key part of that.
Greater Trenton can be
Real quick,
part
can
of
you
that.
do this? You and I were talking offline about Brenda Ross-Dulon from Wells Fargo. What role is she going to be playing?
Well, our leadership team on the board is the two co-chairs, myself and Skip.
Right.
Karen was a co-chair, and Skip assumed her position. And then with that move, Brenda Ross-Dulon became our corporate secretary, and Dr. George Pruitt, the head of
From Thomas Edison
State
Right.
University, is our treasurer. So that's the leadership on the board. So, and it's very, very strong leadership. Brenda, for instance, she's very active in Camden and has been part of that revitalization. So she brings that expertise to our board. And she's the type of individual, when she engages 100%. So we really benefit from that kind of leadership. Skip was talking about it. We have 11 organizations, and the leaders that they have given us, loaned their time to us as Greater Trenton. We're benefiting,
That
from
board
that
is key,
expertise.
is it not? That board is absolutely key.
Kevin Cummings, the CEO of
He
Investors
was
Bank.
just in our studio, Kevin Cummings from Investors Bank.
Tremendously active
Right.
on our board, and that's an example of who we have. We have the general counsel at Princeton University, Ramona Romero. Everybody is interested. What's in it for them? The revitalization of Trenton.
Got
And
about
that's
a
it.
minute left. Prediction, the city of Trenton over the next 3 to 5 years. Go, George.
It's going to be a fabulous place to live and work and have more companies and residents come in.
Go, Skip.
I would agree with George. I think it's going to be a fabulous place to live, work, and play. I think that we will have seen real revitalization within the next 3 to 5 years, and that people will look back on this period of time and say, why didn't it happen sooner?
In spite of the challenges,
In
spite
spite
of
of the
perception,
challenges.
issues of safety, all those issues, you don't solve them, but you're confident good things are coming down the road.
I am absolutely confident.
Mr. Ware,
things are
Mr. Mayor,
coming
you'll
down
talk
the
more
road.
on our one-on-one, but your prediction.
Residents' quality of life will continue to increase. We'll continue to attract quality companies who bring in quality jobs into our city, and we'll continue to use great assets of these individuals around us to get rid of those negative perceptions and move to our real reality.
Barney.
The conversations have been around Newark and Camden over the past few years. The conversation will be all about Trenton in the coming years.
I want to thank all of you for joining us and talking about our capital city, and we cannot forget that. Trenton, New Jersey is the capital city of this state. It is seen by many. You look, where is the capital? Sacramento out in California. It is Trenton in New Jersey. Every school child in New Jersey and across the country knows that. So what happens in Trenton matters greatly to all of us. I want to thank you for joining us, and we'll be back right after this.
One-on-One with Steve Adubato has been a production of the Caucus Educational Corporation, celebrating over 25 years of broadcast excellence. Funding for this edition of One-on-One with Steve Adubato has been provided by University Hospital, Newark, New Jersey, MD Advantage Insurance Company of New Jersey, New Jersey Resources, ShopRite Supermarkets, Georgian Court University, Choose New Jersey, and by Verizon. Transportation provided by Airbrook Limousine, serving the metropolitan New York, New Jersey area. One-on-One with Steve Adubato has been produced in partnership with TriStar Studios.